Perfect. Okay, Dom, why you're in Australia,
Yeah.
I'm in Edmonton. You can invest anywhere in the world and you're buying property in Edmonton. So why is that?
Yeah. So I mean, as we just said just then, like I sort of took a sort of worldwide view on this thing when I first got started. It maybe took me a little bit longer to get started than others because I didn't want to just buy like a fixer upper and just paint it and try and figure out how to rent it and do what a lot of people do and just get dive straight in, because I knew that if I was tied up with a property like that from overseas, I could be in a whole world of pain. So when I started looking at stuff, I started getting into real estate about a year or so ago. And I took a lot of coaching. I read a lot of books, and like I said, took a bit longer to get into it. Um, but yeah, so I took this sort of lens of the world, and looked at Australia. I was looking at the UK. I was looking at Kansas City. I was looking at Missouri. I was looking at a bunch of different places. And the sort of lens just kept narrowing and narrowing and narrowing. And I will be back in Canada in a few years. So obviously Canada is appealing to me. But Edmonton as a market is just so stable and it cash flows. And I think even during this COVID environment, it's kind of testament to Edmonton, where Toronto, Vancouver, even some of these other more markets that aren't on everyone's radar in Canada, they're going absolutely nuts. They're going up 20-25% in the last year, and obviously it's unprecedented times. But Edmonton stayed pretty rock solid. Like, it's not appreciated that much. There's not a whole lot of risk when you look at the rest of the Canadian market, and you just know that you're going to get your cash flow and your principal pay down. So that's kind of why I just kept coming back to Edmonton. Like, I almost did deals in other states and other countries, and I just kept coming back to Edmonton for those reasons. It's like, if you can get your cash flow, then why go anywhere else?
You were doing rental properties or you were flipping or burring in like what were you all doing?
Yeah, yeah. So good question. So I actually started, I think like a lot of investors, I started reading the Bigger Pockets books and listening to the Bigger Pockets podcast, and I became obsessed with the burst strategy. I thought, oh my God, I'm going to have 50 properties next year, like these guys do on Bigger Pockets.
Yeah.
And I think that's how I connected with you, right? Like, I was like, Nick, can we do a burst together? Um, and yeah, so it's funny, right? Like, it's funny that that's how it goes. But I've kind of changed my business strategy since then, because my skills are in sort of helping people and run the numbers and finding properties and connecting with great people like you, in markets. But yeah, I definitely wanted to start with the burst strategy, and start flipping properties and just sort of creating lots of deal velocity, but realize that not everyone has to go down that same path. And I think that's been really useful for me over the last sort of 6 months, is learning that, because I think you tend to get a little bit tunnel vision, and you look at one guy who's doing so well with one strategy and you think, I have to do it the way he does it. But I think the thing I'm learning is that with real estate, like, everybody's strategy is different, and it's because everyone's situation is so different as well. And I think we literally just had this conversation before we recorded this, right?
Yeah. But to invest in Australia, did you find that there's just no opportunity? I just feel like since I'm in Edmonton, I want to try and work the market that I know here as much as I can. I'm not even thinking like the other side of the world. So was it that you tried the Australia market and then you're like, oh, this doesn't work quite as well?
Yeah, so it's pretty dangerous just saying the Australian market in general, because that'll be like saying the Canadian
Right,
market.
Canadian
Do you
market,
know what I
yeah,
mean? It's
yeah.
like the difference between, Vancouver and Edmonton is vast,
But
and I
the
think
general
that's what.
idea of not looking inward, but looking outward.
Yeah, well, I think that's another great question as well, because I've always lived in my life. I've always lived in places, and we're of an age where we've always been told that house prices are unaffordable. I'm not sure if that's the information that you've been fed growing up in Canada, but growing up in the UK, it was like, if you're not on the property ladder and you're this age, good luck, basically. And then I moved to Whistler and lived in Whistler for 8 years. And the house market, literally, when I arrived, it just started just climbing, climbing, climbing. And then it did become unaffordable for me to buy a house there. It was like, well, I'm literally not going to be able to afford a property that's bigger than a two-bedroom apartment now. So I think when you're investing, and just for the record, I live in Sydney now, and Sydney is a very similar market to Vancouver. It would be, Australia is similar in that Sydney and Melbourne are like Vancouver and Toronto, and there's these like really highly appreciated markets, very desirable to live locations. I live 5 minutes away from the beach. I've got really good work opportunities in the city. So it's a great place to live, but investing here is very difficult. Like it's almost impossible. So even if I was to invest in Australia, I would probably be looking at investing in like the Edmonton of Australia. Like I'd be looking for somewhere that's not going crazy and it's stable. And, you know, it's not Vancouver, it's not Toronto, but, you know, real estate's good, real estate's affordable. There's lots of renters there. And there are places like that. But at the end of the day, it just made sense for me to invest in Canada because purely from a tax standpoint, when I actually move back, it's going to be more difficult for me to do it now. But then I can kind of just step into all these properties in 2 years when I'm back in Canada versus the other way where I'm like, oh no, I've now got 20 properties in Australia. What am I going to do with these properties? Do I sell and then move them to Canada, or do you know what I mean? So I'm definitely giving myself a harder time up front. But I think it should work out in the long run.
And why are you moving to Canada again?
Because we
Why
love
would
it.
you want to move here?
Because we love it. So I grew up in the UK, and I don't even know if we've had this conversation, Nick, which is quite funny. But I grew up in the UK and then moved to Whistler because I wanted to be a ski instructor and a mountain bike guide. So I did that and fulfilled those dreams. And I lived there for 8 years, and I got Canadian citizenship. Absolutely fell in love with the country. Like it was one of the coolest days of my life getting Canadian citizenship. And just like it really felt like home. And then so I moved to Australia after that because my girlfriend is actually Aussie, so she's doing a master's in physiotherapy, and we just thought, you know what, let's change it up. Like if anyone's watching this or ever does watch this, if it sees the light of day and they've been to Whistler, living there for 8 years, you know, it kind of grinds you down a little bit, and it's kind of ready to go somewhere else for a little bit. And we've moved here, and definitely we're going to be back in Canada, somewhere in BC, whether it's, you know, the Sea to Sky area again, or the island, or I don't know, maybe somewhere more remote, but we'll see.
So then Canada, you fell in love with Canada. You want to make BC your home eventually,
Yep.
but realize that Alberta and Edmonton specifically are the best places to invest.
In my opinion, one of the best places to invest in Canada for sure, even in the world, like from my lens. And like I said, everyone's situation is different. But for me and what I'm trying to achieve, I just think it made so much sense. Like it makes so much sense for me to invest there. And I recently read a book called The Psychology of Money that talks about this stuff. And it talks about when everyone else is trying to get 30% returns, just be happy with your 7 to 14% returns and just keep getting those every single year. And that's the way that I buy property as well. Like I'm looking at Edmonton, sometimes I'm going, oh, I could buy the same thing on Vancouver Island, or I could buy something similar for a similar price on Vancouver Island, maybe not the same, you know, property type. And maybe it's going to appreciate 10% next year, or I don't know. But at the end of the day, I'm like, I know that I can put my money in Edmonton, and hopefully this doesn't come back to haunt me because hopefully the bottom doesn't fall out of the market. But I'm just looking at my cash flow and principal pay down. I just want that to keep going, you know, year after year after year. And if the Edmonton market doesn't budge, I'm fine with that. Like it's that, you know, saying about investing that you want it to be like watching paint dry. You don't want it to be like going to Vegas and putting your money in the slot machine. So.
Yeah, no, that's smart. That makes sense to me. And the nice thing that I like to do when we're doing like rental pro formas, or like if I'm bringing you a property, Dom, we're not even considering appreciation in those numbers. And that's like a big selling feature, which I think I don't even fully understand or appreciate because I've grown up in this market. That's all I really know is this market. So when we're doing our numbers and showing a good return on rental properties with zero appreciation, that's pretty hard to beat. When like if you're in the Vancouver market, Toronto market, you are basically banking on appreciation. That's the only way you're going to win in that real estate game. And like you said, that is kind of the scary part of that's a bit of the Vegas roulette wheel there.
For sure.
Just hoping if it's going to go up or down. But
well, that's why I encourage, like, you know, being a long distance investor. You know, I'm from places and I live in places that are highly desirable, like Vancouver, like Whistler, like Sydney, where the market is just going up and down, and it rarely goes down, but it's constantly just firing, and it's volatile. Like there's you know, it is like the stock market. It's going up and down every day. And I think if you're investing long distance, like I want to put these properties in place, I want to get them rented, and I just want to leave them alone. Like I want to know that I don't have to check the Edmonton market every day to see has the bottom fallen out. Like I'm really confident that even if the bottom fell out of the Canadian market, I feel like Edmonton's, I mean, I don't have a crystal ball, but I feel more confident that Edmonton's going to hold itself than a Vancouver or a Toronto. Like, because it's, you know, there's people just rushing in and out of those cities at the moment. And yeah, I've got enough. I work in tech, so I've got some of these shares, and I'm not interested in doing that with real estate either. So they go up and down too much.
Right on.